Well, very good morning. You're all welcome to this flight from Manchester to Belfast City. So we're using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 with the Fenix Addon, and we have started up on stand here in Manchester, and we're just going to get the aircraft ready for the flight. We've prepared a flight in SimBrief, and it's all ready to go. It's a nice short flight this morning, approximately around 35 minutes, and just waiting for the aircraft to boot up here. Once we get that going, it will be able to load all the bits and pieces. So we've just switched it on here. Let's get some of the screens up and running. That's a nice cold start here in Manchester this morning, cold and dark. So let's get those up and those up. There we go. So the aircraft just booting up here, going through some of its checks. There we go. There, we'll stick up an owl TikTok there. Now, some of the chat from TikTok also live on YouTube this morning. Feel free to go over there for the HD version. There we go. So, walking into the cockpit now, it's all switched on. So parking brake is set, engine masters are off, and the thrust levers are to idle. Going up to the overhead panel, we're switching on the cruise supply and the ADIRSs. Fuel pumps, whoop. Using the Track IR headset this morning, it's a little bit jittery, but it should settle down as we get going. So there's all the bits and pieces there switched on. QNH is 1008 is set here this morning. Now, so let's just change some of the little some of the aspects of this. Let's come out, go to general options, and let's do full screen. Let's do Windows. We get a little bit more control of what's going on. Okay, and that's it there now. Yeah. Apply and save. There we go. And resume. There. So we actually just bring that down, bring the chat back down here, and bring that back up. There we go. So we prepared a flight this morning in SimBrief. We just go in here and load it in, and get the passengers loading, get the fuel loading. We'll import that there. There we go, Manchester to Belfast City, ground services. Let's connect the tug and get him all ready for later on. GPU is there at the moment, that's good, mass balance, and we'll start loading the aircraft. Now, so looking at the flight plan, we'll come down into the init. This is the init request. Once we hit that, that should go out to SimBrief and bring all in the relevant data for the flight this morning. So just waiting for it to connect and download. So there we go. We are Manchester to Belfast with the alternate at Dublin, and the flight number this morning is EI223. Cost index we're using is 9, and we'll go up to 28,000 feet this morning, and that should be, yeah, that's all sitting in there. When we bring in the actual real world winds, we're using live weather this morning. Let's have a look outside to see what the weather's like in Manchester. Nice morning, looking pretty decent. sun's just coming up. So there we go. So the winds are all brought in. And go back to the initialization page. Look for the zero fuel weight and the zero fuel weight center of gravity. Showing on the flight plan this morning, if we actually just come out here and load the flight plan in from SimBrief. So don't forget, if you like the live this morning, do double tap the screen and share the live and get some more people in for the flight. It is only a short one this morning, about 35-40 minutes. So the zero fuel weight estimate is going to be 57 tons today, and we'll just put that in there. We're in 57 tons, and we'll estimate the max CG of 30%. So we'll just put that in for now. We'll get the actual one off the load sheet when the aircraft is loaded, and the fuel on board is 4.6 tons this morning, which is quite sufficient. So there we go. So once getting out of here in Manchester this morning, it is runway 23 right. So we'll select that, and it's going to be an ECLA departure. So the ECLA 1 Romeo. Once we place that in, and going into Belfast City, they have some arrivals, but normally it's radar vectors in, and I'm assuming it's runway 22. So we'll have a look at that as we get into the air. We'll double check the weather on the far side. So the progress, GPS primary, we're just waiting on. Performance of standard thrust reduction acceleration engine out, no compulsory emergency turns, and we'll copy the secondary flight plan as a mirror of the primary. So the ECLA 1 Romeo this morning, the initial altitude is going to be 5,000 feet, and we have that set in the window. We'll place 2,000 we'll use for the squawk. We're not using VATSIM this morning. They're not live on the sectors, so it's a pity. Maybe later on we'll get another live going and we can use VATSIM. It gives us a bit more in-depth experience with the flight sim. So while we're just waiting for the last of the passengers to board, we don't have the boarding message ready yet. We can start actually looking at some of the performance and getting that ready. Sea Aviation, thanks very much for the rose, very much appreciated. Don't forget, if you're not following at the moment, give us a like, share the live and drop us a follow, and that'll give you some notifications as to when we are going live again. Sometimes it's in the morning time, sometimes in the afternoon. I like doing the afternoon ones when we have VATSIM available. Those guys are very good. It gives a really different level to the sim experience. So I'm a real world Airbus 320 pilot. I'm flying over 20 years now at the moment, and I have seen lots of improvements on flight sim over many years, and I have to say the add-on that we're using here this morning is the Fenix Airbus 320. It's probably the most up-to-date and immersive add-on that I've seen on flight sim throughout all the years, and highly recommended. The guys have done a fantastic job over there at Fenix, especially when it comes to realism in the Airbus 320, getting the computers to work. Even some of the failures that we can experience en route as well is very good. So what we're waiting on the aircraft to finish loading. Irish Mammy biggest fear is flying. Well, when you think about that, flying is a lot of people do have a fear of it. At the same time, don't forget, you'll also have people who are afraid of flying are not afraid of driving in a car. And when you think about it, some people say the most dangerous part of a pilot's day is the actual drive to the airport and not while they're in the aircraft. So when you think about it that way, there's the fear of flying, I do understand people have it, but it is probably one of the most safest ways of traveling. So it looks like we're just about pretty loaded here at the moment. Let's just see what this is over here. Okay, let's do a calculation then for the performance. We'll get that out of the way. So this morning we're looking at flaps 1 and 0.4 nose down, 24, 35 and 37 on a flex temp 68 degrees. So we'll get that in there. So 134, 135. mistake there, 135 and 137. 137. Flex temp is 68 degrees. Flaps 1 and 0.4 nose down for the performance. So that's all set. So you think it's a control thing, driving my car, I'm in control. Yeah, actually that's that seems to be probably a pivot point for a lot of people regards of fears of various things of being in control and not in control. I have to say so myself, I do quite enjoy when I'm flying the aircraft, probably not when I'm a passenger, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying. However, you know, when we look at it rationally, it's probably not justified. However, the turbulence, it's not a bad thing. It's like, you know, turbulence, you go over to potholes in the car, and same as like potholes in the air. It's pretty much the same kind of thing. Probably due to being a control freak. I wouldn't say freak, I would actually say control. You know, I think we all like an element of control in airlines, and especially when it comes to traveling and flying, just brings another dimension into it. So I totally get it. Anyway, we're sitting here on the stand here. The boarding is now complete. As you can see, the performance is now entered into the box, and we have basically given our own clearance up to the ECLID departure of runway 22 right, and going to be to an altitude of 5,000 feet. So what does the ECLID departure mean? It means once we take off on runway, let's just bring in the routing, and we'll show you what it means regards to the departure. So Manchester departure and ECLID 1 Romeo. ECLID 1 Romeo. So this is what it looks like. Once we take off and depart on runway 25, we'll be coming straight on out to probably a distance of just about 3.2 miles, and we'll make this turn and a heading at 274 and pick up a radial that will take us all the way out to ECLID, and the radial will be from the Manchester VOR. So there's some constraints on that. 8 miles from Manchester, we've got to be above 2,500 feet, but below 5,000 feet. 13 miles above 4,000 and below 5, and at 16 miles, 5,000 feet takes us to ECLID. So if we looked at the program that is in the box, we can see that we come off to Manchester for 3 miles, and then we turn on to a heading at 273 to intercept. Then we go on to this point of Delta 254 Hotel. That has constraints also in the box of greater than 2,500 feet, so that ties in nicely with the first 8 mile point, and then we've got the other two of above 4 and at 5,000 feet. So we're just scrolling in there. You can see that the Papa point, the Mike point is above 4,000 feet, and then the last one should be at 5,000 feet from Papa, and it is at 5,000 feet, and the next point then is ECLID. So the departure is coded correctly in the box, and any speed constraints that will be there. Normally it's 250 knots below flight level 100. So thanks for answering the question. Any time, as I say, anybody any interests, any questions in relation to the Airbus 320 itself, it's pop them in the chat, and we'll try and get to them as we get up towards the cruise. So this is a very short cruise sector this morning, but we'll get there. Anyway, we are ready for departure. So we'll do before start checklist. So it says cockpit preparation is that's not quite complete. We need to get the APU on. That's why we do a checklist. So just wait for that to start up there now. We'll give that a quick minute. Sea Aviation, thank you for the gifts again, very much appreciated. And we have the APU is kicking off there now. Once we get that going, then we'll disconnect all the ground power and we'll get the flight on the way. So nearly there, 45%. Just waiting for the APU to fully start up and give us APU available. So we'll switch over the electrics. There we go. It's looking like it's starting to settle down. And it becomes now available. So there we go. is air conditioned, and we get rid of the ground part outside, and there we go. So the cockpit prep is complete. The EFB switches are on, gear pins and covers are removed. Signs on auto and armed. ADIRS is in. Fuel quantities, check sufficient for the flight, and the bar reference is 1008. Set once, twice, and 3 times. Thanks for the follows, and don't forget, guys, if you want to double click that screen, it does give it help push the live out and get more people on board for the departure. So at this point in time, we would obviously obtain air traffic control clearance. We aren't using SimBrief this morning, but we'll obtain air traffic control clearance and then speak to the ground crew and basically say to them, cop at the ground, can you confirm all doors, hatches are closed and the pin is installed? And he will come back and reply, all doors, hatches are closed, pin secured, ready for push. And I tell him to clear to lift, and once we have the push clearance, we would commence the push. So let's do that by basically just go straight back for a little bit, and then with a tail to the left. So ground services, let's disconnect the ground GPU, tug's connected, and we start going backwards, and brakes are released. For the controls this morning, I'm using the Thrustmaster quadrant and also joystick, so it's a nice addition for those of you very interested in the Airbus 320. So do you hear passengers on the plane during the flight? No, not really. It's fairly well soundproofed off from the cabin. You wouldn't hear them too often. So let's just turn the tail a little bit to the left. There we go. And we'll start the engines now since we push back. So as I said, nice short flight this morning, 40 minutes, and we'll literally be into a top of climb, and we will then get ready for the descent. So let's just stop the pushback there, and we'll set the parking brake. So pushback is stopped. Now starting the engines this morning on the Thrustmaster quadrant, we'll switch the ignition on to start, and simply just place engine number 1 forward. So what we're looking for here is the engines are starting to spool up. Air is now opened up from the isolation valve, and we can see the N2 spinning up towards 21-22%. Once we get that, then you see the fuel going in. There we go, fuel's now going in, and the exhaust gas temperature should be starting to increase. Once we start to increase, the engine starts to spin up to where it needs to be, and the front blade that you see is the N1. You can also see that increasing, and that will settle around 18-19%. Depending on the atmospheric conditions outside. So when the N2 gets to just over 50%, the isolation valve is now closed, and once it settles around 18, you can hear the generator just kicking in there, and the engine now is becoming available to us. So that's all. That's one good start there, and let's do the exact same for engine number 2. So engine number 2. Again, look for the 22% on the N2, and once the fuel goes in, exhaust gas temperature rising, and then the N1 starts to spin up also. So there. You speak so clearly, yeah, if I'm on board, I'm filing over the speaker, it's very muffled. It's a bit more like, something like that, I'd imagine, is it? So this is all computer controlled. This morning, as I said, what is going on here? Do you think the tug is still connected from the outside, is it? Yeah, he's still trying to push. Let's get rid of him. Something going wrong here. Okay, let's just stop. Don't know why the tug is not disconnected. Let's try it from up here. No. I'm not quite sure why the tug won't disconnect. cancel, confirm evacuation. We're definitely not doing that this morning. There we go. Let's stop there, and now we take the truck away. Let's just make sure he is disconnected. So we just accept where we are at the moment. Love the Irish accent. Thank you very much, Darlene. Much appreciated. Don't forget, guys, double click that screen and let's get the live shared out there, so we get other people on board to enjoy it this morning. Okay, so we have after start. Let's just do the flow. So once we push back the pilot flying, then on the Thrustmaster, I'm going to switch the ignition back to normal and switch off the APU bleed. We don't need engine on the ice this morning. Let's bring up the lights a little bit so we can see what we're doing. And the engine APU is off. So if we had a first officer this morning with us, he would now set the ground spoilers, reset the rudder trim, select flap 1, which we have flap 1 for our performance this morning, and it's 0.4 down on the trim. So let's just set that. What we're looking for is these numbers here in the center where it says pitch trim 0. Once we move that control wheel forward, we're looking for 0.4 down on the trim. So there we go, it's all set for the departure. So after start checklist is anti-ice is off, engine mode selector is normal, rudder trim is 0, and the pitch trim is 0.4 down once, twice and 3 times. Flight instruments, we just double check those. It says 30 anti-tape, 134 blue, 137 magenta, climb and out blue, 1FD2 heading 222 once and twice, 3 times by the compass. And the two waypoint is Manchester 03, 326 degrees at 2.7 nautical miles, which is sensible. So then we do the flight control checks, which we'll go full up, full down and neutral, full left, full right and neutral, rudder full left and full right and neutral. And if we had a second pilot on board this morning, he would repeat those controls to make sure that everything is working in the correct logic. So there we go. At this point in time, we would now call ready for taxi. So Shamrock 223, taxi into runway 23 right. So brakes released. Just a little bit on the power to get the aircraft moving. That's all we need. There we go. Tell you they have a good flight. Thank you very much. Don't say something wrong. I'll try not to. Sending love to all the Irish people of Ireland. That is fantastic. Don't forget, guys, to again double click that. The more we get that double click on that screen, the more we get the live sharing out. It is only a short flight this morning, so it's 40 minutes. It'll be very quick. We'll depart now in Manchester and landing into Belfast City. A little bit of a short runway. Thanks for the follow, Cloudy Day. Let's just have a quick look what we're doing. Test the brakes. Brakes are checked, and pressure. Oh, let's have to recalibrate this headset one moment. No, that's not working. And there we go. There we go. That's better now. Not a bad morning here in Manchester. Let's have a little look outside. So we're taxiing up via, they're going to join Kilo Juliet all the way down to threshold of runway 23 right. So before takeoff checks, the flight instruments are checked. Briefing and navigates, it's it's confirmed and set for departure of runway 23 right. It's the ECLA departure, climbing to an altitude initially of 5,000 feet. Flaps, 1 is planned, 1 is selected, 1 plus F is indicating. V speeds and flex temp is 134, 135, 137. Flex temp is 68 degrees, sensible of 85% flex. ATC code is set. ECAM memo is takeoff low blue. Cabin secure, Paxson APU is on and off, and the TCAS, we'll set that to TA or A. As before takeoff, checklist complete. Right, let's get down to the runway and let's get going. So while we're taxiing down, do all planes have this system? When you say this system, what exactly are you talking about? If you're talking about exactly what I'm doing here, this is, very much the closest that I've ever seen to the Airbus 320 layout. The exact controls here, the exact buttons, the exact bits and pieces is all exactly what you would see in Airbus 320. Although I do fly the 320 in real life, I'm not quite doing everything here to airline standard, where it does require two people to have it done exactly. But we'll get close enough to give you an idea of what's actually going on in the cockpit. Are the pilot seats empty? No. It's nice to have two guys in there throughout the flight. There we go. So look at up here. So if you're wondering why getting some good views here this morning, we're actually using the Track IR headset. Nice little addition. So you have a little infrared camera as well as a couple of LEDs attached to the headset. Everywhere you move your head, it's like you're looking around the cockpit. So it does bring another level of immersiveness to the gaming. So 23 people on board this morning. Double tap that screen and let's get the live out there. So there's nothing on the approach. We're going to line up. So lights and strobes. PWS is on. PWS is going on. Well, actually, let's just wait till we line up and we get it all done. So runway 23 right in Manchester. There we go. Let's just double check our checklist before we do anything else. So lights and strobes. The PWS is now predictive wind shear is on. TA or A brake fans is off. Camera is off. Memos are checked and there is no glue. So we're clear for takeoff. Lights is on. And check is complete. Yep, there we go. So takeoff. The takeoff procedure is pushing the control column forward about halfway and setting initially 50% on the thrust levers. So what we're doing is we're just looking to make sure both engines just spool up nicely and evenly, maintaining the center line of the runway. Once we're happy, setting flex. So man flex SRS runway, other thrust is blue. As we reach 100 knots, easing back to centralize the side stick. 100 knots, 120 knots. V1 and rotate. Positive rate climb, checks and verify that off the vertical speed indicator. Let's place the gear up. So basically the flight management computer is feeding the route and the departure into the autopilot systems, and we're basically looking at the flight director now. So set and climb thrust. So if we just fly the flight director, we'll be sure to stay within the parameters of the departure, and that's what we need from ATC. So hand flying at the moment. At this point in time, we just put in autopilot 1. Now the autopilot will fly the departure from the flight management computer. Thanks very much for the follows, guys. Wazer, John, Peppard, and Bart, thank you very much. So as we see now, it's just reached the point of 3 miles, and it's just making a slight right-hand turn to pick up a heading of about 70 degrees to join a radial off the Manchester Via War. And if we look here on the Via War is set, we don't actually have it set up here. We did do it for the departure, not to worry. So the speed has gone above the S speed, which is flat speed, and so now we can select flaps 1. Flap 0, I should say. So speed check flap 0 and 0. You can see the Mersey in the distance, and actually see Liverpool Airport just in the middle of the screen there. And don't forget, if you want to see the HD version, go over onto the Red Channel, Fly Ireland, and it's streaming there in live HD. So speed out star, we're reaching 5,000 feet. So that's reasonable. At this point in time, air traffic control will probably give you a clearance to climb higher. So let's just select our cruising altitude today of 28,000 feet. There we go. So, past transition, setting the standard, passing 5.6 now, flight level 280 blue, and that checks on both sides. Bailey 15, good morning to you too. Don't forget, double tap that screen and let's get the live out as far as we can, get more passengers. Let's see, can we fill the plane? 174 passengers required for the landing in Belfast City this morning. 35 on board. So there we go, we're climbing away nicely there. So at this point in time, the after takeoff checks will be a good call. So we'll disarm the spoilers and we'll put the lights away, so we don't need them now while we're up in the air. So the after takeoff checks is landing gear is up, the flaps are retracted, the packs are on, and we are pressurizing. The APU is off, and the barrel reference is standard as set once, twice, and 3 times. We're passing 9,700 feet now. Just coming up to the 10,000 foot, so we're passing 10,000 feet, 10,000 foot climb checks. We are pressurizing. Lights are, double check the lights are in, seatbelts are off. Airport now we'll select up here, so we get a good visualization of what other airports is within our proximity. Airport, Via War, terrain is off, and we'll clear and copy the active. There we go. So we're on our way, we're cruise climbing. So just out here on the right hand side is the John Lennon Airport, the Liverpool Airport, right down here. It's actually quite a good airport then if you had a major problem on the departure out of Manchester. It's something to consider that you may want to land in there. It's clear morning this morning. We're using the real world weather. So whatever it is out there in Manchester and Belfast is what we're going to have to deal with for the landing. So Belfast City is my local airport. Well, that's where we're going into this morning. It's just a style, terrified of flying, but love watching these. As we just spoke earlier on, in regards of people being afraid of flying. You know, some people have asked me what's the most dangerous part of the flight and my day's work, and I would also always say it's the actual drive to and from the airport. It's not when you get into the aircraft. Sensible people doing sensible things in an aircraft, can't quite say that's the same out the road. So nicely climbing away there. So all looks good. Double checking, fuel is sufficient. There's no leaks there. We have burnt 800 kilos of fuel. 800 on the 3.8 is 4.6, and it's exactly what we had. So no fuel leaks. So what we're using this morning is the Fenix A320 Addon for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Highly recommend that anybody who's interested in flying the 320 or even actually going to real world training, those of you who are pilots and going to train on an Airbus 320, I would highly recommend this. Even this can actually produce a lot of failures and stuff like that, and you can actually go through the procedure as to how we deal with it. So it's a great add-on to the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So everything's all ticking away nicely. So Irishman ever had a dangerous near accident? No, thank God they are very few and far between, and it's all to do with, for instance, the safety procedures that is within the cockpit. It's also to do with the procedures of air traffic control, and all these things are very well coordinated and keeps all that kind of stuff to a very bare minimum. And there is so much traffic out there. It's actually a testament to safety procedures within aviation, how well that a lot of these things don't come up too often, which is quite good. So thanks for the follow, guys. If you're not actually following, drop us a note, follow, double tap the screen. Let's get the live out there. We have 42 passengers on board. Let's try and get up to at least 174. That's the maximum capacity of the airplane. Let's get up to 174 for the landing. Let's see just can we do it. Nice early morning flight. We'll try and do some of the afternoon flights where VATSIM will be probably on board, and we can actually get some really good air traffic control coordination going from clearances and speaking to air traffic controllers on the ground. The VATSIM world is really good. Anybody who's into taking their flight simulator right to the next level, do go on to VATSIM. Don't be afraid of talking to the guys there. They're really helpful and highly recommend it. So I believe that's the Isle of Anglesey out there to my left as we head out over the Irish Sea. We're going to start making, I think we'll be flying actually over the Isle of Man shortly. We've got, as we can see here from the flight plan, it looks like once we get up to our cruise altitude, which would be the blue arrow where the airplane is estimating we're going to be leveling off at that point, we'll have a very short cruise section where we'll start making our descent then towards Belfast. So while that's actually happening, let's get ahead of the game because it is quite short, and we're going to call up the plates for the plates for Belfast City. So let's see what we're actually dealing with. Ground chart. No, it's Manchester. Let's go back and go to Belfast City. So on the arrival, we'll actually just look at the approach for runway 22, the ILS runway 22. So this is effectively what's going to happen. We're coming in from just around to the southeast of the place here, and we're coming up towards these points here. We're make a left-hand turn and join that ILS and landing in Belfast City. So that's effectively the way we're going to be shooting that ILS. So we'll leave that plate there for a moment. And what have we got? So while we're in the climb there, we'll look at the performance here for the landing. And we'll actually first of all call for weather. Let's see what the weather is like in Belfast City. So weather, EGAC, and get the METAR, send for that. Turn. AOC Meadow. And let's have a look at the received messages. That's what the weather is like. So, in Belfast City, it's just 3 knots. It's variable around. A nice morning there. Great and 10 kilometres visibility. It's a little bit of light rain, overcast at 2,100 feet. Temperature 10 degrees and 1005. So we'll actually put that information into our approach phase. So 10 degrees. and 1005 is the QNH. Now the decision altitude on the ILS, we have back down over to the plate, and we can look at, we're flying a Category C aircraft this morning, so looking at that, straight in London runway 22, and Category C is decision altitude of 619 feet. So we'll actually place that into the box as well. So 619 feet. And that's it. It's all set up there now for the approach. So we're at our cruise altitude of 28,000 feet. Having a look through all the systems, making sure everything's all ticking along nicely. Basically, once we see green, is good to go. If we had a failure system there, let's have a look at the fuel, for instance. So we had a failure, and we can see all the pumps there green. So if we turned, let's say, the fuel pumps to the centre off, and let's have a look. No, not indicating this morning. Not quite doing what we're trying to get it to do, but we'll look at that later on. It's fairly early in the morning. It certainly is. Could have done an earlier one, but we'll get this one out of the way. I'm hoping to do one later on if we get some time, so we'll be able to use VATSIM, as we said, and bring in some air traffic control into it as well. So we're about 22 miles before our top of descent. So let's have a look. We're expecting radar vectors in from, you would be expecting radar vectors in from Belfast. As I said, coming up along here, the ILS frequency is 108.1, and it should be indicated by the India Bravo Foxtrot Hotel. So let's have a look at that there. Go to RadNavs, and it says India Bravo Foxtrot Hotel 108.1, and that is spot on there. Front course is 217 with a 3-degree glide slope going in, and it says here 218, that's close enough, and a 3-degree glide slope. All the way down to the minimum, as we said, of 619 that we have to do in this approach. It's basically going to be straight ahead to 8 miles initially, with a left-hand turn over joining the airfield again. Normally at that point, ATC will pick you back up on radar vectors and get you going back in for another approach. So everything's all set up, we're all ready to go, and just before we start our descent, just take a little bit of a breather. So what do you think is more realistic, X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator? Well, I'm bridging the realism by the add-on that I'm using here, which is the Fenix Airbus A320. I would say this is probably the most realistic thing and close to real life that I've ever seen in the flight sim world. I've been on flight sim and using it since 95. That's going back, the 1995 version, I should say. That's going back quite a bit. And I've seen them throughout the years with various add-ons and realisms. However, since this got released a few months ago, the guys over at Fenix have done an incredible job. This is really study level kind of stuff. We could actually set up a failure here if we want to, and I could show you how we can handle the failure. And the last few failures that I've tried, I've noticed that the ECAM and the procedures for actually dealing with the failure is true to real life. So they've done a fantastic job on this. When I say €50 is, or £50 is nothing to pay for this, I highly recommend to get this. So flying to Tuam in Galway, very good. Are you playing multiplayer? No, not at the moment. Come on, a driver, don't speed. I'll try not. Although I have been known to wind it up a little bit at times. We'll be certainly doing a high-speed descent. Let's get into Belfast nice and quick, and let's just show you how we can manage energy in a descent. So I'm coming up to the top of the descent. I'm going to give myself an initial clearance down to 10,000 feet. So let's bring that down to 10,000 feet. And the aircraft does nothing just yet until I actually either push or pull that button. If I push it, I manage the descent to the computer, but if I pull it out towards me, basically I'm commanding the thrust to go to 0, and the aircraft will pitch the nose to maintain that speed right there. So let's bring the speed up a little bit, because I do want to have this I do want this as a high speed descent. So I'm going to bring it up to about 300 knots and leave at 300 knots. Now you see the aircraft is accelerating towards that. And as we come to our top of descent, once we now take the altitude and pull it towards us, we get thrust idle up descent. So you can see that the auto thrust is being commanded down to 0. Watch those engines coming back there now. So the thrust is going to start coming down to 0, and the aircraft is going to pitch the nose down to try and maintain 300 knots, and whatever rate of descent that gives us, that's what we live at. That's an open descent. You got to go to school now and see us some other time. Take care. How long did it take you to study aviation? I did it in 2 years and got the license over a 2-year period. So that's fairly in between average going. Some people can do it in less than that. I do know you can start your full airline transport pilot's license. Your frozen airport pilot's license, and that can take is up to 15 months minimal. Some people like to spread it over 2 to 3 years. So the other man down right beneath us. Let's go direct to Limca. So direct, just cut off a little bit of the approach. Oh, actually, McGee is a better one. Let's save that. So we're going direct to McGee. So forget, guys, if you haven't followed, drop us a note, follow there, so you'll get notified the next time that we actually go live. Hopefully later on this afternoon. And we do go live later on this afternoon. We'll be certainly looking for ATC from Vatsin. So do you have Xbox? Don't. No, this is a PC version that we're using, and the specs that I'm using at the moment is the Intel i90. The i9. And using the RTX 3080 for the graphics card with 64 gigs memory, and Republic Gaming 590Z motherboard loads. I think that's quite sufficient now to be running something like this. That'll do certainly for a while. What GCSEs do you need to become an airline pilot? Do you need A levels? To be honest with you, you don't technically need any GSEs, or you don't need any A levels. It's basically your aptitude to the job. It's not like being a pilot and getting a pilot's license is not quite like having to ascertain a certain amount of A's or B's or C's in your A levels or GCSEs. This is more to do with having an aptitude for the business, which before you would ever go to train as a pilot, highly suggest that you do 1, a medical, and 2, maybe a couple of aptitude tests to make sure that you suit towards it. And then unfortunately it is a lot of from there on in of being able to afford to actually go and do it. Some people go and take loans from banks, parents and so forth, and it is a quite hefty investment, quite a gamble. But I have to say, once you do start flying, it is one of the best jobs in the world. Of course, I'd have to say that. Dr. Joker, thank you for the rose. Very much appreciated. So, just to have a little look at, make sure everything's all gone. Nice, it certainly is. So heading to McGee, and basically we're going to be going straight up here to McGee. It's 40 miles away, and swinging a left-hand turn, landing in Belfast City. So estimated time on the ground is another 10 minutes now. So those of you that didn't join us earlier on, just to reiterate, using the controls this morning of the Trustmaster joystick and Trustmaster quadrant as the two engine setup. It's definitely something to be using if you're very much into flying the Airbus 320 on flight sim. It certainly gives an element of extra immersiveness within the sim itself. And from the head tracking, just using the Track IR 5, very highly recommended to me by Fly UK, and once I got that, it does actually bring a different level. Not using the mouse to sort of to pan and zoom around, just using the head, where you have a couple of LEDs attached onto the side, and it's looking at an IR camera, so it's quite good. It takes a lot of trying to control views out of play, where you just have to look on point. Highly recommend it. So just about 8 minutes to go now before landing. We're doing a high-speed ascent now towards Belfast City. Let's bring the altitude down to about 3,000 feet where we're out of the sea. So we're going to keep this speed up. And looking at the plate, we're going to be maintaining basically out over the sea, so don't mind keeping the high speed up before we make that left-hand turn in to join the ILS for runway 22. The weather in Belfast this morning, it is variable wind at just about 3 knots and temperatures is 10 degrees. So still a nice fresh one. We're using the real world weather as well, so I'm assuming anybody from Belfast that's on the live there can actually verify it's not bad morning out there. As soon as I leave school, I'm getting a job and saving. Yeah, do. It's well worth it. That's what a lot of people have to do. It's myself inclusive. Yeah, we're doing, as I said, we are doing a few early morning lives. Still a bit of jet lag from work a couple of days ago, so we're still waking up fairly early. That's why we're getting the old early lives in. So we're passing through 10,000 feet. So we'll give, at this point in time, we give the cabin crew a notification by switching the seatbelt sign on twice, and they would hear a double ding back there, so they know there's a few minutes to go. So lights then we'll also bring out, make sure we're nice and visible, especially in the dark. So lights, constraints, terrain. And let's activate the approach phase. It is saying speed limit is exceeded. That's because generally we do 250 knots below flight level 100. So approach phase is now activated. Approach checks. Cabin crew advised the seatbelts are on. The briefing and nav aids. It's set and confirmed for an ILS runway 22. I've got let's bring up the ILS. I've got the India Bravo Foxtrot Hotel 108.1 inbound course 216 is set. So the MDA is 619 and the ECAM status is checked. So that's the approach checklist complete. So Belfast is clear. There we go. Told you. Nice morning there in Belfast. Winds variable at 4 knots. That's exactly what we're at. So what else have we got? Anything else in this plate? So basically for the ILS, you're basically making sure that after vector restore, you're self-positioned, that you're not infringing any high ground there. So the sector safe altitude, if we look up to the top, just once this is based on the Hotel Bravo locator, which is just over the airfield there. Anything to the south is 3,800 feet. But there's a little note there on that. When you're within 15 nautical miles, it's 3,000 feet. So if we were in IMC conditions, in other words, we couldn't see the ground, I certainly wouldn't be going down past those, just passing transition, setting the QNH 1005, passing 4,100 feet now, and that checks. Yeah, as we're saying, if we're in clouds, we certainly wouldn't be going down past those sector altitudes there. However, are fairly familiar with the terrain around this area and our approach in, so I certainly would, if requested by ATC, keep the high speed up. So as we approaching 3,000 feet, we need to start slowing down the aircraft. So by just by pushing the speed, once we have pushed the speed, we get 3 dots up here on the autopilot control panel here. So those 3 dots basically mean we've managed the speed to the computer. So everything now is going to be, from speed wise, it's going to be based on what the computer wants. So the target speed is 141. As it slows down, we start taking some flaps out, and at this point we will be clear for the approach. So let's arm it. It's the approach and autopilot 2. Let's bring out the range a little bit so we can see what we're doing. So there we go, 10 miles in before we start to crossing the V point. We've got a left hand turn down that localizer. So Belfast City Airport, just down along the lock there on the left hand side. So how do you get the airport plate up on the window? So that's basically in the Fenix Addon. You can actually just call in the plates once you have a subscription with Navigraph. So the article's on your left, that's right. Any tips for severely nervous flyers? Yeah, well, just think that going out in a car, I would always say, is probably a little bit more nerve-wracking. You don't know, you can't quite be sure everybody is sensible in a car out there, but I would, bet my bottom dollar on it. In the aircraft and commercial air aviation, people are complying with the rules of the air. I don't think everybody complies with the rules of the road, so yeah, it's if you think of it that way, it's a bit more logic. So we're just sitting at the green dot speed, even though it's trying to target 142. It won't at the moment because I haven't allowed the flaps to come out. I haven't set the flaps out at the moment, so I'm just flying clean for a little bit. Once I take flap 1 out, then it will allow the speed to come down a little bit further. So, won't lie, this is very interesting. Thanks very much, girl. Trying to do, as I do fly the Airbus 320 in real life, we're not doing exactly airline procedures here, but just as much as we can to give a general idea as to what's going on in the cockpit. So we're getting to the point now where we need to start configuring. So I'm going to take the flaps 1. So speed checks, flaps 1. So select the flaps 1 on the thrust master control column. As we can see, there's a little S, green S letter there, and that's at 185 knots. The auto thrust is in, so it won't allow it. That's the lowest it will allow me to go, flap 1. So you can see now the power's coming back up again. It is trying to get down to 141 knots. So let's go, speed is checked, flap 2. So there we go. Now it's going to start coming down towards the 141. So the approach is armed. It is looking for the localizer to join it automatically. I could take out the autopilot and hand fly it in using the ILS. But we'll see the little magenta little bug here down in the bottom right. Once that starts coming across, the airplane will lock onto that signal and turn left towards it. And then when the one comes down on the vertical from the right hand side, it'll also lock onto it, and then it'll follow both the lateral and vertical heading down towards the runway. So that's basically the way the ILS works. Thanks for the thunder hammer, loved that, very, very much appreciated. So there we go, it's just locked on to the localizer, and you can actually see it turning in towards the bay, so it's lining up with the runway out there, and this is what happens in real life. So watch, there we go, that's the signal basically saying we're approaching the centre of that signal. So we want to try and keep it into the yellow lubber line there. So as we line up with the runway, hopefully it slows down a little bit. If we shoot through it, the aircraft will correct and get back onto it again. So that if we look straight out, we'll actually see there's the runway way ahead of us there. And we're holding the signal, the middle signal, and any adjustments it needs, the autopilot will adjust it. So we're locked onto that localizer, waiting for the vertical one now to come down. And there's the vertical one now. It's starting to come down. Once it's above us, it means we're below the signal. We need to get onto it. If that diamond shot through the middle of it there, that means we're above, we're a little bit too high. So currently we're level at 3,000 feet. waiting for it to come down. And once it locks on, we'll see this Glide GS Blue? It's armed. It's ready to capture it. Once it gets through, that will go to Glide Slope Star and then go to Glide Slope, and the altitude will disappear because it won't be maintaining 3,000 feet anymore. It will want to descend according to the slope of the runway. So as you can see, out there it is in the distance. And it's just about to capture it. So I remember playing flight sim as a kid, never been able to get the landing right. Don't worry, the flight sim it can be difficult at times, and it all depends even the way you control the setup and so forth. So as you can see, look, capturing, just about to capture it, and there we go. The Glide Slope GS is turned from blue to green, and once that little star disappears away from the S, that means we are fully locked on to it. So we've got both the lateral and the vertical, and then we'll be starting to descend towards the runway at the correct angle. So there's the radar that's just becoming alive now. There we go, Glide Slope, and the stars gone. We are fully locked onto the ILS. So looking out there, you can see that we're lined up with the runway. It's also telling us we are 8.8 miles away, so we're about 6 nautical miles. We'll put down the gear, take flap 3, flap full, and we'll do the landing check then. So the best advice you can give someone with a fear of flying, I've just said it a couple of times, we'll even say it again, don't forget, driving in a car, flying in an aircraft, same thing, you're travelling from A to B, and travelling in the car is probably can be a little bit more dangerous. So if you think of it that way, your flight is actually much more safer than driving a car. So 37 people in for the landing, fair enough. We were trying to get 174 to fill up the aircraft for its maximum capacity. So we're approaching 7 nautical miles. I'm going to start taking the gear down now. So we have a little look around. There's the gear coming down. So gear down and the doors are up. So gear's down. Flap 3 and flap full and landing check. So bar reference is 1005 is set, auto thrust to speed, and ECAM memo landing no blue. So approaching 5.5 miles, fully lined up on the runway. We're in good shape. So at this time, it's always nice to disconnect the autopilot and disconnect the auto thrust. So we'll bring back the little blue donuts to the center, press disconnect the auto thrust, now disconnect the autopilot. And now we hand fly it all the way in. So once at this point in time, air traffic control will be giving us clearance to land. So lights, silence, camera, it's all good. 3 greens, flaps are full. Good to land. Yes, landed in Belfast City. So speed a little bit jumping around, and a little bit high. So let's get the nose down that a little bit more. Just to get those diamond little shapes back onto the lubber line. There we go. That's good. And we'll hold them there. Hold the center line. Hold the glide slope. Looking for about 52% thrust. Belfast City, short runway. You don't want to be hanging around, floating around this one. You want to be getting down and getting the job done. So let's put low in the auto brake at the moment. So we get a little bit of automatic braking. So we've got 3 reds, slightly low. Increase the thrust. I am visual. Okay, happy enough to continue. There we go. We got the profile back in again, setting it back down to 52% thrust and approximately 700 feet rate of descent. So 3 whites, slightly high. Let's get it down. Don't go any more VS of 1,000 feet a minute rate of descent. Keep milking down the runway, maintain the center line.
50, 40,
and
30,
flaring the aircraft,
20, retard.
reducing the thrust, and there we go. Hit the brakes. So, spoilers, reverse green, decel, 70 knots, coming back off the thrust. So there we have it, Belfast City. Nice little fresh morning, Belfast City. Butter, I don't know about that. I long for one of those butter landings. There we go. So we'll bring the aircraft up onto the stand. We'll show you exactly how it's shut down and parked, as we would do in real life. So turning off the runways, priority getting safely off. And at this point in time, air traffic control will give us our taxi clearance as to what stand we're going to. So when we get onto the straight, we'll actually do the after landing checks. And normally one pilot is taxiing the aircraft at this moment of time. So the after landings will be definitely starting the APU. We're going to need that as we come up onto stand. And switching off the flight director, switching off the ILS, switching off the PWS and any radar. Keep an eye out here, trying to do both jobs at the same time. Disconnecting that, putting the flaps up, and if we just turn onto the stand here, just generic scenery here. We don't have any Belfast City scenery installed, so we turn on the stand here and just put it there, set the parking brake, waiting for the APU to come on. It's not fully on at the moment. If we chop the two engines right now, we'd actually go into darkness because of no generators will be supplying electricity to the aircraft. So we'll be shutting down now in the next minute or two. Any questions you have on the 320, pop them into the chat and we'll try and answer those before we end the live. Let's have a look. So we're nearly there. Let's go ahead and switch off one engine. So engine number 1's off. And we're just definitely waiting now this time for the APU. There it is. The APU is now there. Switch off the second engine. Second engine's off. Both of them are spooling down. At this point, seatbelt sign is off. Beacon is going off. Strobes are off. All the other lights are off. And the last thing we do here is switch off the fuel pumps. Getting ready for the turnaround. We check the IRSs, make sure that navigation's all within tolerances, and then we call for check. So, welcome to Belfast. We have got here. So, Butter, thanks very much, Bailey. LOL, that's no Ryanair. Wow, love this, an adrenaline rush. Yep, it's not bad now in fairness. So, don't forget, as I said, drop us a follow. And what we'll do is try and get onto another live later on where we'll check out VATSIM, have a look and make sure that those guys are live, and we'll pick a route where we can do full air traffic control and ATC with the guys over in VATSIM, which makes it quite a more realistic and immersive flight. So on London is all you keep in line. On London is it all you keeping in line with the runway? I'm assuming it is keeping in line with the runway coming in is on the localizer, and obviously when we're on the runway we're basically using the rudder until we get down to low speeds, and then we can use the side tiller as well, and that's basically keeping us in line and on the runway when we get there as well. So if you have any more questions, just pop them in quickly. We've another minute or two before we go. Let's have a little look outside. Oh, there we go. Nice Aer Lingus livery there. Belfast this morning. Actually, even the scenery there is quite realistic. Oh, the Harlan Wolff cranes over in the distance. Belfast. Those of you who are not familiar with Belfast, there are two famous cranes over there. Oh, where are we going? Those two famous cranes are well known over here in Belfast, and I do believe it was. There's an aircraft manufacturer or something like that on the far side of the runway. I'm not quite sure who they are. I think it was BAE at one stage. But Yeah, fairly for generic scenery, it's pretty well laid out. So thinking of buying the game, is the tutorial's good? Well, let me just say that buying Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is one thing, and this is the Fenix add-on that I'm actually using with it. Now, there's a whole document of about 400 or 500 pages online that gives you an idea how to set up the aircraft and the systems on it. So, I mean, it fairly is well. I won't say it's intuitive, but you really have to understand what's going on. And in saying that, once you do actually get used to it, it's very rewarding as to knowing what kind of stuff goes on in the Airbus 320. As I said, I'm flying this aircraft for 20 years in real life, and up to date, nothing has ever come close than the Fenix add-on for this, where you can actually, I think it has over 230 failures or something in that region. A lot of the circuit breakers work and the systems work, so it is absolutely incredible. One of the few aircraft add-ons out there as well that would have the add-on for the CDPLC. Again, that's another air traffic control function that we can get working with the VATSIM guys later on. So I think we leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. And again, last thing, don't forget, hit that like button, hit that follow, and if we have any other lives coming up in the future, you'll certainly be notified about it. So thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.